Hi everyone. So this is our session today, activating grammar for communication. And like I said, I can already see in the comments how many of you need this. Um, so why is it that learners do still struggle? Perhaps you can add that, add some comments in the chat box. What grammar point do your learners seem to struggle with most, perhaps? Um, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to trying to juggle so many different pages and things like that and trying to find your comments ready. Yes, so we've got they're practicing tenses and passive voice. I can see lots of perfect tenses. It's grammar for everyone. Oh, yes, tenses. I think that this what we're going to look at will actually apply for everyone, but it's difficult, isn't it? Actually getting students to use grammar. So we've got this kind of familiar problem that we teach it and they practice it. We always kind of give them controlled practice, gap fills, whatever, and they seem to do it really well. You come and do a test, they do that really well. But when it comes to communication, it all just seems to disappear. So if this sounds familiar, and it certainly does, looking at your comments, I'm pretty sure most of you are going to answer yes or 100 yes. It is, isn't it? And it's hard. And we feel, as teachers, we feel we've done a good job because we've presented the grammar, they've practiced the grammar, they get 10 out of 10 in the exercises, but they come to use it and it just all seems to disappear. So let's have a look at some of the ways and what we can do. So, like I was saying, this idea of coverage, it doesn't necessarily equal control. So you think as teachers, you think you have successfully covered this grammar and they recognize it, they explain it, they complete all of the exercises, but using it in communication, it's difficult. So let's have another little think and write in the chat box as well. What does it actually mean to know a grammar point? Because once we've identified what that means, we can then identify what we need to do to help them. So what do they need to know? They need to know to use it in everyday communication. They need to understand it. Yes, I'm just reading some of the comments. They need to use it right. They need to use it every day for communication. I think that one keeps coming up quite a lot. And so it's not just about how to construct a sentence. And yes, it's a bonus if they can use it correctly, isn't it? But yeah, we need to know the form and usage and understanding. There's so many comments, and that's brilliant. I'm going to move on and show you what I've put. So what does it mean to actually know grammar? Does it mean that they can recognize it? They see it in a text or anything and they know it. Oh, that's the present perfect. But is that what we mean when we want them to know grammar? Can they explain it? Very often they can. They can use it and explain it, and they can use it in these little controlled exercises. Say they can complete exercises, but can they use it while communicating? Yeah. Sometimes, sometimes you might find students can use it while communicating, but don't know it the other way around as well. And I think that's an important point to make as well. So yeah, they need to know the form, meaning, form, and pronunciation of it, but it's more than that. It's how they get there, isn't it? To know grammar. So our first little activity, and this is quite exciting, I think, and Joe's going to enjoy this one as well. I'm just going to start. How do I stop sharing? Sorry. I've lost my thing. Oh, it's right in a different screen. Stop share. I want everybody to do this as well. Okay. So if you've got a pen, and we're teachers, we should have, and a finger, you have an instant thing to use for your classroom. What I want you to do is to draw a little face on your finger, and you can be as creative as possible. Let me find my camera. Here's mine.
There's mine.
Hey.
They look similar.
Okay. But before we do anything with this, we're just going to... Sorry. I'm still struggling with trying to find out all these things. I want you to look at your little finger character, my finger bobs, and decide a name for it. So what would you call your character? And in doing that, you kind of have to go, is it a boy or a girl, or kind of thing, or could be either. Then think about where does it live? What what kind of family does your character have? What does it like doing? Okay. So when you've had a thought about this, perhaps you can also answer these questions with your character. And Joe and I are going to have our first conversation. Okay. So, hello.
Hello, how are you?
What's your name?
My name's Lizzie.
Hello, Lizzie.
Hello, what's your name?
My name's Bob.
Oh, oh, nice
Where
to
do
meet
you
you, Bob.
live, Lizzie?
I live in a little house. What about
Ooh,
you?
I live in a big house in the
Oh,
country.
oh,
Who do you live with?
I live with my two sisters. What,
Oh,
what,
have you
what?
got any pets?
Um, no, I haven't got any pets. Have you?
No. What do you like doing in your free time?
Well, at the moment, I really like watching football because I'm watching the World Cup.
Well, that's lucky because it's on all the time.
Do you
Okay.
like football?
Oh, I do. I do. I'm watching it anyway. Okay. So there's the first example. And I'm hoping Melissa is somewhere behind the scenes with her character.
Hi.
Is she there?
Hello.
Oh, she is. And we're going to have our next conversation. But Joe, I don't want
Okay.
Joe to go away. Oh. So we've changed partners. Okay. So Melissa.
Oh, I'm asking the questions.
Oh, you can. Or I can.
Joe asking the
Either.
questions.
You go.
Okay, you can ask the questions.
Hello. What's your name?
Hello, my name's Ali.
Hello, Ali. Where do you live?
I live in an island in Scotland.
Oh, that sounds lovely. Who do you live with?
I live with my two dogs, three cats, and five chickens.
Oh, what do you like doing in your free time?
Oh, I don't have any free time. I don't do any animals, but I like surfing.
Woo! Now I'm imagining a figure surfing. Oh, that's lovely. Okay. I wonder if Joe and Melissa can have a similar conversation as well.
Hello, Ali.
Hello, I forgot your name. What's your name?
My name's Lizzie. Nice to see you,
Hi.
Ali.
Hi, nice to see you again, Lizzie. Where do you live now, Lizzie?
Oh, I live in a little house, and my little house is on the side of a mountain.
Oh, wow. Very
Mm,
beautiful.
yeah.
Who lives there, Lizzie?
Well, I live with my two sisters, Lulu and Lola. I haven't got any
Oh,
pets like you, though, Ali. You've got
oh
lots of
no,
pets.
I do. You should get a dog. They're fun.
Oh, unfortunately, I'm allergic.
Oh,
Uh,
what do you like doing in your free time, Lizzie? Do you like
well,
surfing like me?
I've never tried surfing, but I would like to try. Mainly, I like watching football. Do you like watching football, Ali?
No, I don't like football. I prefer to read a book in the evening.
Oh, that sounds nice.
How
Bye.
did we do, teacher?
Thank you. Wasn't that brilliant? I think you did very well. I think that's
Yay.
that's amazing. Okay. Um, I'm gonna have to share again. Now I don't know.
I enjoyed it.
That was good
Yes.
fun.
Did you
Yeah.
feel, how did you feel
I,
about doing it? I think that's my next
I got
question.
more into character the second time I did it. That's
Yeah.
yeah. First time it was, I don't know, it felt a bit strange.
Hmm.
And then by the second time, and once I'd also heard Melissa and you doing it,
Hmm.
then I felt a bit more confident, I think, the second time.
And if you'd done it a third time, because if you
Oh,
had
you wouldn't,
imagined you were
yeah,
doing it with somebody else when Melissa and I were doing it, and then um coming back to
doing it
speech for your speech
again,
test.
repeating it another time, I think I would have had even more fun, I would have got
Yeah.
into it and I would have probably, made more details about my character.
Yeah.
Started, yeah,
And I
Like
think that's
improvising
important.
more.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
so. Mm.
Yeah. And I think this is such an important thing because, well, I'm gonna just gonna share my screen. And I want everybody else really, rather than it just being a three-way conversation with us. What I want everyone else to say what they noticed as well.
Mm.
Um, hello. Have I shared a screen? Oh no,
Not yet.
sorry.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's
that's
Yeah,
it.
coming
yeah.
now. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, if you can put in the chat box what actually changed between the first, and you've had a few little hints there. Oh, what changed between the first and the third conversation? If you imagine, so each time you did it, it would be with a different person. Absolutely more comfortable. It was more detailed. There was fluency. Yeah, I think that's really important that our confidence in all of us, and we're fluent speakers, we got more confident as it went on as well. So, yes, you're getting more invested in the character, more immersed in it. And it's just, yeah, it's really engaging. And it's just such a lovely little activity because you need nothing. You need nothing to do this. And I think that's what's really important. So we didn't need to teach any new grammar. The grammar would have come out from whatever the task was. We just had the simple task of getting to know somebody. But the fluency increased as we saw. And that improvement came from repeated use, not from an explanation, not from knowing more rules, but just from repeated use. And those kind of questions, what's your name? Where do you live? What do you like doing? Those are such really simple, basic questions, aren't they? That we seem to cover all the time. But when the students are in a class where they know each other very well, they've been together for years, or, they know each other's family, everything, then these kind of conversations just become a demonstration conversation. Then there's no information gap because they already know the answers to the questions. So by creating a little puppet, um, finger puppet, or what I call a finger bob, you're creating a new character. They're using the language they already know and gaining fluency. So that's why it works. Sorry, I forgot to put the next slide on. So why does it work? They use the language they're familiar with already. They don't need any more language. They just need to use what they've got. This repetition and repeating it 3 or 4 times, like we say, they got more invested in it, were able to use it. And you can pick up things from the people you're speaking to, and then, oh yeah, that you don't necessarily consciously think, oh, she used this structure, I'm going to use that. It just happens. And it's very meaning focused communication. And I think that's really important, that there was a purpose behind it, having a, very personalized. This is, you're invested in this little character you've created, and there's low pressure, because once you start talking with as your finger, it's no longer you making the errors and the mistakes, it's your character, and you can get your students to put on voices, so it becomes even less them, it's more their character. So there's a real low pressure activity, isn't it? So why don't learners use the grammar we've presented to them? Very often it's because they need opportunities to retrieve it. They need to be able to reuse it and repeat it and personalize it. And we don't provide them with enough opportunities to do that. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted by chats and everything, but I'm going to come back to the questions. Yeah, this is why they don't use the grammar. We don't give them enough opportunities to retrieve and reuse and repeat and personalize. So that's on us, isn't it? And here's our key little takeaway from today, is that learners don't become fluent because you've corrected them, because you've presented and explained grammar to them. That's not how they get fluent. They become fluent because they are repeatedly using language. Okay, they become fluent because they use the language repeatedly with increasing control after that. So today I'm going to share with you a little framework that I've been working on recently. And this is the MMM framework. So don't worry if you can't read those. We're going to go through each of these individually in a minute. So for me, I think that language learning is about this MMM, where you need to give them an opportunity to meet language. They then have to do something with it, so they're manipulating it. But most importantly, they need to make it their own. They need to have ownership. So we're going to look at these 3 sort of way of balancing a lesson, really, I think. Structuring and balancing. So first, meet. This is where your learners experience language through some kind of meaningful context. Now, that could be through activities like listening to a story, reading a story, telling a little anecdote, could be pictures, it could be a picture story, it could be a matching exercise, it could be a comic strip, a dialogue, an email. I could go on forever saying how they meet this language. It could just be a picture and what they can see, and what's happening, what do you think happened, what has happened, depending on things. But they're meeting that language somehow through a context like this. Okay, so the next stage would be to go on and manipulate the language. So this means that they would be using the language somehow, using the grammar, but with support. And this is where the accuracy is developed a little bit. And the support might be gap fills, sentence stems, substitution tables. We might continue with some information gaps, you know, the kind of thing where they have to unscramble sentences or match sentence halves, beginning and endings. Yeah, controlled and semi-controlled practice. I think that's kind of where we're at with that. It's playing with the language as well. If you're with very young learners, is giving them that opportunity just to sort of get really familiar with it and play with it and see what sounds right or looks right and what doesn't. Yeah, so sentencing, role plays, that kind of thing. We'll go on, look at these things in a minute. And then the final stage would be a make it your own. So here we would have learners use grammar for genuine communication, and that's where the fluency develops. We want them to leave the lesson with ownership of the language that we've covered in that lesson. We want them to feel that they possess that language, that they are leaving knowing how to do it. So that means taking the support off even further, doesn't it? So that's, you know, could be more role plays or surveys, using the language somehow, like problem solving or debating, giving opinions, having information gaps, doing little activities like we've just done, planning something together, explaining a process somehow, doing something with the language that is very personal, that makes them feel, like I say, that they own it. They've got it. Okay. So you can just write in the comments which stage of your lesson gets squeezed out. If you had to divide your lesson into meet, manipulate, and make it your own, I know. Yeah, number 3. You think the manipulate stage, lots of people put in the manipulate, make it your own. It's really interesting because I think we either jump from the meet stage straight into the make it your own stage, or you kind of do meet and manipulate and then the make it your own bit gets pushed out. And it's getting that balance, making sure that we're not over planning so that you can get all of those 3 stages in, or the, you know, without it. Yeah, basically we want them with the make it your own. You need to have got to the stage where they can use it on their own. And yeah, we keep missing this out. I'm just reading comments as well as everything else. So I think the activity that we just did, this one, it kind of gives us, you can see how that was very much a making your own activity, wasn't it? It was taking things. I'm just going to stop sharing for a second, because what I want to do is just say, right, now we've introduced this MMM framework, I want you to think about that in terms of your own teacher development. So I'm going to introduce 4 strategies that you could use in the classroom. And the examples I'm going to demonstrate or talk about may not fit, and probably won't fit, with your teaching situation. So you need to think about how you're meeting these strategies today, but you've got to manipulate them. You've got to change them to suit your age of the students, their level, the country that you're teaching in, the situation, maybe the topic that you're teaching. You've got to change these activities to suit your teaching situation. So you're meeting, you're manipulating, and then when you take it into the classroom, you will feel that you've made those activities, those strategies, your own. Okay, so this is like a double MMM loop thing. So we've got the MMM framework for language learning, but also for you as a teacher and part of your teacher development. So we're going through to look at 4 strategies. Okay. Back to sharing, unless there's any questions, but you can have questions later. Okay, let's see. Am I sharing? No, I'm not. Am I sharing? Quick
Yes,
thumbs
you
up
are.
if you can see my screen. Yeah, thanks. Okay, so here's our first strategy, and you can see how Fingerbob is making making a comeback here. Rehearse before the final task. There's your first strategy. Let's have a look at some examples. So I'm really passionate about this, that speaking is this bridge before writing, and between that practice and independent use, you need to have some speaking doing, yeah. And so this is why I love this activity. So here's an example. You might ask your students to write about their weekend, but before they can write, they need to have thought about it. So asking a partner, oh, what did you do? Where did you go? Who did you go with? What was the best part? Getting them to practice this before they get to write. So you're bringing all of that knowledge, they're hearing their partner saying things in the past tense as well. So that will help them remember, oh, I went here. Oh, yes, right. I'm going to use the word went. Might not consciously make that decision, but they've heard it and therefore they will start using it because they remember it. Who did you go with? All of these kind of questions. We want them to talk about it first to help them. So we're doing this. Then here's another activity, or another example, I should say. So your final task might be to write about the best place to live in your country. But before they write, they need to speak about it, talk to their partner, say which is which city is bigger, which is more expensive, which is more interesting, getting them to use their ideas in a conversation first. Okay, I don't want to feel like I'm rushing through these, but like I say, you're meeting these examples, you need to change them. It's not, you might not be teaching comparatives, just think about it for your situation. Conditionals, yeah, write advice for new students, but first you need to talk about it. So you've got some discussions going, you're talking. The smaller the group, the more language they'll come up with. If you just talk as a class, it tends to be one person and the teacher, and that's not a class discussion. It must be for them to talk individually, not for you to listen to, but for them just to speak and get some ideas out. Yeah, some ideas there on how you could do that. Oh, we love the present perfect, don't we? Write about your experiences. Yes, write about them, but they need to talk about them first. So you've already taught the grammar. Now you're creating opportunities for the learners to retrieve and rehearse and use language before asking them to do something with it independently. Okay, so too often we ask them to go from this practice to performance, but this is the rehearsal stage, and speaking activities is that bridge. Okay, the bridge between practice and independent use. Make sure you put some questions in the chat. Someone's put, do you let them compare with other groups or within the established group? I think you could do either. Sometimes you can change up the group so they speak to one person. Remember, doing Bob more than one time was beneficial, the same as doing this. Yeah, they could go and repeat the tasks, speaking more than once. And that leads us on to strategy number 2, which is to repeat the task. Do the same task with a different partner. So, like we did, doing it once isn't enough. Here's an example. So you want them to tell each other about their weekend, but telling their partner what they did, and then telling another person what they did, and then a third, the story becomes smoother. You know what it's like if on your way to work something funny happens on the bus, or tragic, but on your way to work something happens, and when you get to work you tell somebody and they laugh, and then you tell somebody else, but you've kind of mastered it a little better and you know when to stop and what words to use. And then you tell a third person, and by then you've kind of mastered that timing and the vocabulary, and you know exactly what you're going to say to make somebody laugh about what happened. And I think it's just the same for the learners. They need to do these activities again and again, the same activity. Okay. If you're preparing students for an exam, doing a speaking exam, it's not enough just to do it once with one person. They need to do exactly the same task with somebody else. Why? Because it will give them confidence in what they're saying. They'll pick up language from their partner and they can use it again and again. It's just more convincing, isn't it, to have this? It becomes more accessible. The language that you've taught becomes more accessible because you've used it again and again. Yeah. It's keeping it going. And I think sometimes you can change these little tasks ever so slightly. Just add, like with our Think Bob one, I could have added, next time you do it with someone, all the same questions, but what did you do last night? And then the third one, all the same, find out about your partner, and you just keep adding a little bit extra on. And the same with, when you're doing these speaking preparations or anything, just keep practicing. Yeah, someone's just put, practice is the key. Absolutely. Problem solving, exactly the same. They will get ideas in the first round. They will use those ideas when they go to the next person, and will adjust their ideas as well. And then by round 3, because they're working with someone else, they'll talk more about what they feel about it and what they want, and they'll be able to justify their ideas much better. So you've got the same topic all the way through, but that language gets stronger and stronger. An example of meaningful task is where you've got a task where there's a good outcome. So just talking to your partner and find out where they live, if they already live in the same town, is not meaningful because there's no information gap. They already know that. So the meaningfulness comes when there's this information gap, or that they're producing something, like in this one, the problem solving task. They need to come to an agreement about something, how schools can reduce plastic waste. That's meaningful. We'll might come if we've got time in the question and answers. Here's another example. Describing a picture. Now you might think, oh, they only need to do that once, but actually the first time they're getting used to the task. The second time, they're adding to it. And the third time, they're so used to the task, they can now focus on the language because they know the task, they know the content and what they're going to say, and their focus can now be on making sure that it's said in the best way. Okay, so I think 3 times is spot on. I mean, you could do 4, just saying. And the picture descriptions are good. Right, so that is repeat the task. So in the chat box, oh, hold on. First time learners do the task. This is key. The first time the learners do the task, they're learning the task. The second and third times, they are learning the language. And they're using the language. They're developing the language. The language becomes more accurate, fluent, detailed, and they become more confident. Okay. Absolutely key. So in the books, coverage gives learners knowledge of grammar. Repeated communicative use helps learners gain control. That's what we've just said. Same thing. How often do learners repeat speaking tasks in your classroom? Right in the chat box. How often do you, be honest, how often do you? Yeah, hardly twice, some of them says. You're actually doing it 3? Yeah. I think we're always short of time because we've squeezed that make it your own bit to the end. We're lucky if we get 1 or 2, or the learners don't see the value in doing it again. So I think sometimes we need to point that out, that, oh, this is the 3rd time you're doing it. That was so much better. You know, show them how confident they're getting. Yeah, not often enough, I think. So looking at your answers, and thank you for being very honest. Yeah, that you need to start doing a few more of the same task repeated with a different person or slightly different task. Right, so our 3rd strategy is to reduce support gradually. Okay, so for example, if we're doing comparatives, you might give them a sentence like this: I think it's better than because, and you want them to fill in those gaps. Yeah, so you might think, I think buses are better than cars because they're cheaper. I think Cairo is better than Alexandria because there are more jobs. I think, you know, the kind of thing. So at this point, they're focused on the ideas and the meaning because the language structure is already provided. We then need to reduce the support. So then it might just become a prompt. So you might just put on the board, better than, more than, than, something like that, to remind them this is kind of the language we want and I'm expecting to hear. So, and then the 3rd stage would be, and you've guessed it, removing all of that language. So you just give them the task, but they've already done it or something similar, but you've now removed the language support. I think too often we move that from the sentence frame straight to independence, and you need that little bit in the middle where this is the prompt. We forget about that little prompt where they might need it because we've just gone straight from the sentence frame to trying to do it independently. And then when learners struggle, we assume they haven't learnt the grammar, but it might be that we've actually just removed that support too quickly. Something for us to think about. Okay, so those were the three, three things in that one. Let's look at practical strategy number 4 and the focus on communication first. Here, learners might choose to use comparatives naturally to this communication, I think. Hold on, I'm getting confused. Practical strategy number 4. Focus on the communication. You give this comes back to somebody asking earlier, what's a meaningful task? Give your learners a reason to communicate. So instead of asking them to use a grammar point, you've got to give them this reason, this purpose to communicate. And the grammar should emerge naturally. Too often, I think we teach grammar for grammar's sake. It's on the syllabus. We need to tick the box to say we have taught the present perfect, rather than giving the learners something worth talking about, and then the grammar will naturally appear. So let's have a look at some examples. We've got comparatives, and I've seen these tasks in course books, and I'm sure you have. Use comparatives to describe 2 cities. But why? Why do they need to describe 2 cities? This is the important thing for you as a teacher. If you see a task like this, ask yourself, but why? But why are they being asked to do this? Can you phrase it in a way that makes it more genuine, gives it a meaning behind it? And yes, as someone's just put there, to make a real life connection. So changing that, which city would be the best place for a teenager to live? Now they've got a reason. If they're teenagers, they know they can relate to this. And learners will, they naturally then will start producing the language. Oh, such as it's bigger than, it's more exciting, it's cheaper. And then they need to justify their answers, but making sure that they've got that purpose. When you've got questions like this in books, it says use comparatives to describe 2 cities. That wording is instantly saying, this is a test, this is the language I, as a teacher, am looking for, and I want you to produce. But that's therefore not making it a genuine task, because now they're trying to use that language and focusing on that rather than trying to actually communicate a point. Okay, next example. I have seen this task in many course books as well. Write 5 sentences in the past simple. About what? Just about anything? Give it a task. Give it a meaningful task. Tell your partner about the most memorable day of your life. Find something that can become so that the past simple will become the tool for telling the story, not the other way around. Not that the past simple is what you're trying to get them to use. It's got to be, the grammar has to become a tool for expressing meaning. And then the learners will become more invested in trying to communicate their ideas. Imagine a going to, what are you going to do tomorrow? That I think, but why? Oh, I don't know. You've got to, you think, remember you have to now manipulate these ideas for your teaching and what you're teaching at the moment, or you're going to be teaching. So here we've got another one of the conditionals. Practice second conditional sentence. I don't know. Do we see this in the course book? Yeah. what would you do if you were the head teacher? They'll come up with loads of ideas for that. And then the language can come out of it. You could even start the lesson with this. Someone's just written on in the chat, yes, but how can they do this if they haven't got the language? You could start your lesson with what would you do if you were the head teacher of a school? Get the ideas from them and build the language around it. And then you've got a whole lesson to talk about that topic. And then at the end, you can get them to say 2 or 3 times, like we said, practice it in different ways and to different people. And I think this is what's really important, that the grammar emerges because the learners need it, not because it's just the topic and because you are ticking that box of, oh yeah, we've done second conditionals. Same with this present perfect. Again, I have seen these, ask and answer present perfect questions in a course book. Find someone who's done something interesting. Find someone who's done something the same as you. Who in your group have the most experience? You know, use this language to have it, right? Create curiosity so that they need the answers. Right, enough examples. Let's reflect on what we've gone through. Oh, we've got a few more minutes. I feel like I haven't stopped talking, but never mind. Here's a reflection. Grammar is the vehicle. Communication is the destination. That's something for you to remember. And tell me in the chat box which of those 4 strategies, and you can just put in the numbers, which one do you want to try first? Are you going to rehearse before the final task, repeat the task, reduce that support, or focus on communication, or all of them? Which ones do you think will be most useful? Oh, lovely. A lot of you have put focus on communication, a lot of you put 4, maybe all. So we've gone 1, 2, 3, and 4. Oh, loads. I couldn't read all of that. I can just see it all. Boop, 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 boop. Okay. On the next slide, moving on, because I'm so aware that we are running out of time. So grammar's not learned when they can complete an exercise. It's certainly not learned by listening to you explaining it. Okay, it's learned when they can retrieve it, when they can use it, and when they can communicate with it. So we need to make sure that we're not just covering grammar. We've got to give them the control, and we've got to let it become part of the communication. Grammar is a vehicle, communication is the destination. You all like that one. That's brilliant. Okay, I think this references to the manipulate, make it your own originally came from this book, which I met back when I was doing my master's 2000, and I feel like I have manipulated this because I've made frameworks for it, and I've put it into all sorts of different training as well as teaching. So I certainly now feel like I have ownership, and I've made MMM my own. If you want to contact me, you're very welcome. You can find me on LinkedIn, Jane Maria Harding da Rosa, and you can follow me on Instagram at enrichingELT, or I have a YouTube channel as well at enrichingELT. Feel free to come and have a look what's over there as well. You might find some interesting videos. So, have I got any minutes free? Any spare minutes?
Thank you so much, Jane. Wow, what an engaging and useful session that was. We have got 5 minutes for some questions, and there's
good.
lots. So maybe if you'd just like to stop sharing your slides, then we'll see you better. Lovely. Okay. Yeah, lots and lots of questions. I think people just, loved finger bobs. But yeah. So lots of questions. Should we see how many we can get through in about 5 minutes? Okay, so question that we had right at the beginning from Sam in Zoom. When we talk about students still not using the grammar, do we mean they're not using it correctly, or that they do not try to include it in their written or spoken answers?
Could be either, couldn't it? That they're not using it correctly, or they're not trying to use it. But
So
it's
both could be true there. Yeah.
yeah, I think it's because you know that they can get it right in an exercise, but then when they come to actually use it, they kind of, it hasn't joined the dots really, it hasn't quite got there into their use of language.
Right, which is then why all of the strategies and activities that you explained during the session
Exactly.
are so useful. Okay, so we did the finger bobs activity and we had a lot of fun with that. And Miriam had a question about it, saying the finger activity is communicative, but how does one use it for targeted grammar goal without it feeling too constraining? It often feels less natural and flowing.
I think that needs to come from the task that you set. So we had a very simple task, but I've done this with exam practice students, sort of teenage exam practice. And so whatever the task is, they can still do it because whatever, it's just getting them to use that language, isn't it? Whatever the thing is. So it's about setting up the task correctly. So again, don't look at finger bobs as just, oh, well, that's to practice at getting to know you. That was just what we did. You now need to go away. You've met that idea. You now need to manipulate it to make it your own in your classroom.
Exactly. So that's what you were saying about think about how you can adapt it to your students' level or age, etc.
Yeah.
Actually, somebody's asking, and you've just said that you've used it with older learners. So can we apply finger bobs activity in high school classrooms as well?
Of course. And I know many teachers will go, oh, my teenagers wouldn't do that. Try it. Try it. If they really don't do it and don't want to do it, then you'll know not to do it again with that group. But it's very specific just for that group, because if you try it with another group, it might work really well. What teenagers like about it is that it's not them making the mistakes or the errors. That's why they like it. They can put a character in there. I had one student saying, oh, it's my alter ego.
Oh,
And that
gosh.
can
Yeah.
become whoever they want it to be. And if they want to keep that character every lesson, that's great. But it doesn't have to be, yeah, don't try it. Try it
Just
if
give
you've
it a
got
try.
teenagers.
That's your advice. Just try it and see.
Yeah. When I've done
Okay.
it with teachers, they've all loved it and got so into it. And I just think, it works for
Yeah. So
everyone.
could be adult learners
Yeah.
too. Yeah. Okay. Um, just aware we've only got 1 minute. Maybe we could just ask one more question. A few teachers have been asking like how do we find time to do this? We've got to teach, we've got to cover so much. How do we have time to do this? Are
How
we
long did it
talking
take to do that? To set
this
that up? Once you've set
few
that up,
minutes? Mm,
a couple of minutes, and then they only need a minute with each person. And while they're sitting, you could do it. At the beginning of a lesson,
mm.
while everyone's coming in, you could have a little task on the board and you could get them to do something from previous lessons or something that's leading into the lesson, ideally. Um, it I think you just need to make time for it. If you looked at your lesson, you'll actually find there's a lot of dead time where the students are not doing anything or they're just listening to you. Reduce that and increase this.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's what you were talking about, what's being squeezed. And so I suppose
Yeah,
yeah, that's
yeah.
all part of it. We had so many other questions. And unfortunately, I'm not going to have time to ask them now because we have to finish because we've got another session coming up.
Yeah.
But you are coming back, aren't you? You're coming
Yes.
back this time next week.
Next Friday.
That's it. Yeah. So there we go. Next week at
Oh, at
3
3 o'clock.
p.m. UK time.
So a bit slightly later than this on Facebook and YouTube. Yes.
Okay, so any questions that we haven't managed to get through today, we will try to answer them next week. Because there were so many other interesting questions, but unfortunately, that's all we've got time for today. So thank you so much to our
You're welcome. It's been
audience.
fun.
Thanks to you, Jane. Really, it was such a lovely session, and I think people will go away with lots of really, really just useful techniques and ideas and strategies that they
Brilliant.
can
And
put
there's
into
so
practice.
many people who have responded. I'm very appreciative of that as well.
Exactly. Thank you so much to our audience for, for your interaction, for your questions, for Jane. And also, yeah, thanks to our moderators, Mel in Zoom and Naomi on Facebook and YouTube.
And Lizzie.
And so we're going to be back in 15 minutes for our third and final session for today. So we're going to have 3 primary teachers sharing their ideas for teaching grammar and vocabulary to young learners. So don't go away, stay with us for that. Thank you so much, Jane.
Thank you.
And yeah, so see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.